I'm Mike Kelly from Project Healing Waters Omaha, and um, tonight we're going to tie a couple of flies that are very timely for this time of year, at least in Nebraska. Um, but before we get started, and I didn't really think about how I'm going to do this with a camera, but I'll try doing it on my materials camera here. And I'm going to move this stuff out of the way for now. Something I've been wanting to do this for a while, but this is the first time I've been able to sneak my wife's hair dryer away from her. I had another one that used to be, it was her old one, but it really quit working seriously. But there's something you can do with squirrel tails, and I've done it to this in the past, but I'll do it again, and I'll do it with this gray squirrel. And it's, let me make sure I'm not on, I'm going to put this on warm, and basically, if you blow heated air on these, if you look at the bottom of this tail, you can see how it's kind of splayed out to the side. But between the heat and the air blowing it, you can see that that really takes that hair and makes it stand out to the sides. So for flies like what we're tying tonight, you can just pull it out to the side, and you really rarely even need to stack it.
She might do the same thing to my hair, and it makes it look like I'm not a bald spot anymore.
Well, that doesn't work for me. Um, the way a squirrel tail is kind of laid out is there's a lot of shorter hairs here, and these could be used, for tail material, stuff like that. You can see they don't have the markings; they're shorter. But when you blow it with that heat, it just takes all of those hairs and spreads them out to the sides. So when you come around to the back here, you can pull off a real nice bunch of hair without wasting a bunch of stuff.
Hey, Mike, where do you get your tails at?
Let's see. I bought
Do you
some
buy
at
them?
Cabela's. Yeah, I bought some at Cabela's. Um, I guess if you get one out of the backyard, you could do the same thing with it. Um, Squirrel tail's a squirrel tail, as long as it's properly like cured and bug free and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you were able to see that very good, but I'm going to go ahead and do it to this gray, and we'll see how that turns out. So now the gray squirrel is kind of the same thing, where it all kind of sticks out to the side like that. And it's a lot easier to get that longer hairs without getting a lot of the middle type stuff mixed in with it. So for the first fly, it's going to be it's called the Sushan Postmaster. And I'll share the recipe here. It's hair wing streamer, squirrel tail for the wing. And for that one, it's the red squirrel. This is kind of a unique fly for the hair wing streamers. The tail, it's like Chris and Lisa are coming in. The tail is actually turkey quill. You really can't get the oak mottled stuff very often because, as I understand it, a lot of the commercial turkeys they switch to the white ones, so there's just not as much volume. You can still get some halfway decent quills, but they're not what they used to be. But the tail is actually turkey quill, and the throat, and of course you can substitute, but the throat is actually duck quill, or you could use goose, where they take white quill feathers and dye them so they have a nice vivid color. I'm not rich enough to have jungle cock, so I won't be putting the jungle cock cheeks on the fly. But it's a floss body with a gold tinsel rib, and 4, 6, 8, and 10. You could probably go smaller if you wanted to try to be creative, but for the body, we'll use this Danville 4-strand rayon floss, and we'll probably only use 2 strands of it. I'm going to use a finer pencil for the rib. Is it focused? And I'm going to start with white thread, and I'll eventually move to black. For the tail, this is the closest normally that you can find for, there's some that are a little bit more mottled, but these are the turkey quills that we get nowadays. And there are some places in here where it's real nice modeling that would be good to use for tail, but I think what I'm going to use, just to try to be a little bit different, these are actually from a clumper's clump, from a ringneck pheasant tail clump. These are some of the side feathers, where the real long ones that we use for pheasant tails and stuff are in the center. These are off to the different sides. So I'm going to use kind of opposing slips of this for the tail. And then for the throat, I'm going to use just some red duck quills that I have here. So for this fly, let me switch to the, this is a size 6, which kind of is my sweet spot for hair wing streamers. 6 and 4. I'm going to start a couple eyes back from the eye, and with this white thread, I'm going to actually cord up my thread. So I'm spinning it clockwise as if I was looking down on it. And I want this to be corded, and as I wrap, it's going to continue to stay corded. And the reason I'm doing that is when it's corded and it's round, it's going to put a little bit thicker of like a bulk as I'm wrapping back here. And then I'm holding my tag end at a 90-degree angle, so as I wrap back, it's easy to do those side-by-side wraps. Cut that tag free. And now I'm going to take some of that tinsel And I'm going to tie that in with the silver side facing me because I want the gold side to be wrapped. So and I'm going to wrap it back forward. Trying to fast forward a little bit. Try to make as close to touching wraps as I can. So I want that body to be nice and smooth. Then I'm going to take my clip and just clip that out of the way. Now I'm going to take my thread and spin it the opposite way, counterclockwise as if I was looking down on it, to try to make a nice smooth body for that floss. So you can see my thread is a little bit flat there. Spin it some more. We've done this before.
Mike, looks like we're having some bandwidth issues with you.
Is everybody getting that?
Well, what's happening is you're getting some pauses in the middle of your tying. It just stops and then it starts again. So I'm not sure what's causing that. That's usually a bandwidth problem.
Yeah, I'm getting it too.
Ah. So now I'm going to take these, I'll zoom out some. I'm going to take these two slips and I'm going to take a size 12 hook just to kind of give me the same measurement on both of them. I'm going to come in here like this, split that away. And I'll do the same with the other side. So these are opposing, so basically, as you're looking at the colorful side of the feather, you've got the mottled side on opposing sides there. And I'll take a slip from each one. And what I'm doing is cutting it off and then setting one of them on my pedestal base. Cut the other one off. And then I'll set those together so that the curvature comes together. There they're opposed. So I want to switch them around to where they come together. And then make sure the hips are aligned. And then I'll do a pinch wrap where I'm squeezing that. You see the butt ends come up. I'm going to do one more. And then I'm just going to wrap this forward. Still gives me a little bit of bulk. Still keeping touching turns. And then up here toward the front before I'm gonna cut that loose so it's not interfering with the head of the fly. All right. Now got a pretty smooth base there. Is the video better this time?
Yeah, much better now.
Oh, good. All right, I'm going to take a section of this floss. This is 4-strand again. I'm going to take 2 of these strands and tie them in toward the front here. Take a couple wraps and then I'll just pull that forward. Actually, one of those strands came loose. Whoa. I think we'll still be able to recover from that. So I'm going to take a few wraps forward here. And now I'm going to wrap backwards to the tail. I've been doing gardening and I also had a little trouble there at the beginning, so it's starting to fray a little bit, but I should be okay on the next wrap. So I went back to the tail, avoiding the hook point. And now I'm going to wrap back forward, and then any imperfections should be mostly covered up by this second path. Now, if I was to use black thread underneath this, when this fly gets wet, it's really going to show through and darken the color of that yellow. So I try to make it a point whenever I'm using rayon floss to use white thread underneath it. Now I'm going to take my tinsel. It's got silver forward. Well, I guess we're going to have silver forward. Normally, and it may have been that last wrap of the yellow tinsel that twisted this, but normally if you tie the silver side facing you, then as you go to wrap it, it'll fold and the gold side will be facing out. But the key to the floss, to the tinsel, is just to, of course, added security to that floss, but also to give that little bit of flash, and silver will flash just as much as gold will. So I will now switch back to black thread for the rest of this. So I'm just going to do like a couple turn whip finish here. Which is basically like a couple of half hitches. Cut that loose. And then I'll start my black thread. Now I'm going to turn it upside down. I'm actually going to take a smaller hook. I think this is a 14. Because I don't want my throat to be as wide as that tail. So again, I'll just separate that. set it aside. Make sure this is married good. You can just kind of fuss with it. If you look at it and you've got an imperfection, usually you can kind of tweak it a little bit. And I'll do the same thing here. Flip one loose. Set it aside. Grab the other one. And then again, I'll take those to where they're facing each other. The curves face into each other so they come together like that. Make sure the tips are aligned. And then I want to go almost to the hook point. And I'll do the same thing, a pinch wrap where I have the feathers pinched tight. I have them down to the hook shank. I come up between the feathers and my thumb, and then come down between my finger and the feathers and pull straight down while I'm pinching. And then I'll do one more. That should hold that in place. And that's pretty even on both sides. As long as I wrap forward toward the eye of the hook, it's not going to jostle that tail. So maybe one more turn, and I'll come in and clip out that excess. I got one cut loose there. So there's the throat. And now I want to take, you can overdress these, and especially with squirrel tail. It's a very, very hard, and I've said this before, it's a hard and slippery material. If you have a big clump and something falls out of the middle, the rest of your wing is going to quickly follow behind it. So it's really hard to say, without actually counting the hairs, how much to use, but you'll just kind of get the hang of it eventually. Just kind of go by the look. Now there are some shorter ones here. I am going to kind of grab the tips and see if I can pull some of those away. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to measure this to about the end of the tail and mark it with these fingers. And then I'll come over the waist bin. Got those loose, and then if I spin my bobbin counterclockwise as if I was looking down on it, it will tend to reach back toward my thumb and finger and grab the butt ends of that hair. Slipped off. This would be a good time for wax. So let me do that instead of risking blowing this fly up. I'm going to put a little thread wax on there, which will help grip that hair. And I'll do the same thing. Grab my clump of squirrel tail, a little bit more than what I'll need. Take out all the short ones. And again, you could stack this, but I kind of like the tips to be a little bit natural like that. So I'll mark it here. Make sure my thread starts back here at the throat. And then with that wax, it's not so likely to slip off like it did before. So I'm putting a good deal of pressure on this. Make sure that's tied down nice and tight. And then I'll fill in the front there. Make a nice, I'm still pinching that squirrel tail real tight just to make sure it stays on top. And that looks good. And then go ahead and whip finish. And that's the Sushan Postmaster. Again, the reason that I like using these types of flies this time of year is it's not weighted. The squirrel tail isn't necessarily buoyant, but flies like this will sink very, very slowly, and so you can fish them very slowly. It was actually created by Lou Oatman in 1953 as a tribute to his friend Al Prindle, who was the postmaster of a small hamlet in New York. Called Shushan. Lou Oatman is kind of famous in the hair wing streamer world. Hair and feather wing. Let's put some head cement on there and let that dry. And that's a pretty streamer. The next one is the Picket Pin. And like I said, if you've been around for a few years, you probably remember this one. But it's another fly that, again, squirrel, and then the palmered hackle through the peacock body really makes it hang and sink slowly. So it's an outstanding crappie and bass fly, depending on the size, I suppose. It's more tied on a nymph hook. You could tie it on a longer hook and make it more like a streamer. 6, 8, 10, and 12. The tail, the actual original, it was created in Montana by Jack Beam in the early 1910s. The term, the picket pin, comes from the material that was originally used for the wing and tail. A lot of people say gopher, but it was originally tied with hair from ground squirrels, which were called picket pins because when they stood upright, they looked similar to the stakes that were used to picket horses to an area of grass without the horse running off. Especially as it moved out east, and just by availability of fly tying materials. Today, the fly is pretty much always tied with gray squirrel tail. Don Bastian also has a pretty popular fly back east called the red squirrel silver picket pin. It's basically the same thing, but with red squirrel instead of the gray squirrel for the wing. And then he has a silver body instead of the peacock curl. So for materials, I pretty much read them off. We're going to use the gray squirrel. I think I'll use the red squirrel for the tail, peacock curl for the body. I'm going to rib it with copper wire, and then you can use dry fly brown hackle if that's all you have. I'm going to use the I have this hen cape has some pretty long long feathers in it, so I'm going to use that to rib the body. So let me move some of this stuff out of the way. I will tie this with black thread. And I'll go ahead to the end of the shank. Which is right about there. And then I'm going to take a little bit of, actually, I think I might use some of that stuff from the center of the squirrel tail that I was talking about. It's not as, it doesn't have the same markings as the side hairs, but I think that'll kind of be cool because it'll have the black, those red tips. That's a little bit too much for this tail. I'm doing this on a size 6. And with, I'll clean out some of that junk so I don't have a mess. I'm leaning the stack of hair a little bit toward me and at an angle. And then thread torque will roll it up on top. I'm just going to kind of do spaced wraps here. To help me get up toward the front. And then I'll go ahead and cut that loose. All right. And from there, I'm going to go ahead and tie in a piece of copper wire. I'm using brassy size. Just seemed like it for this size seemed to be appropriate. I don't want it to be too heavy, like I was saying. And on most of this, instead of hurting your scissors, it's usually brittle enough to where you can break it with your nail. So I'm going to tie that down and let it kind of roll around to the backside. So I want it on the lower side, opposite of me. So then when I wrap it, I won't foil the tail. For the peacock curl, I've done a lot of flies in the past where I supported the peacock curl with twisting it around the thread. There's different ways that you can make it sturdier. In a fly like this, I don't think it's necessary. because at least in this case, I'm going to have a palmered hackle and then copper wire holding that palmered hackle down. So really, I'm going to be basically ribbing that peacock herl twice. And so that will make it a pretty sturdy fly. So I want to leave it about a quarter of the hook up here for the head. So actually, what I actually like to do, since I'm using 3 peacock herls here, is leave the thread hanging and then wrap against that thread. It keeps the herls together, but I think it also kind of fluffs it as you come by that thread and makes it a pretty fluffy body. And then again, I want to tie this off before I get too far forward. Cut those loose. Now I'm going to tie in the hackle. So I'm going to come up to where you can see the stem is relatively thick down there toward the bottom. I don't know if that's zoomed in properly. But you can see it's pretty thick there toward the bottom, and then it starts to narrow off about right here. So I'm just going to take this stuff and strip it away. And then I'm going to, with the shiny side facing me, I'm going to take a little bit more off of the top there. And when I tie that down, nice tight wraps going forward here. And then I'll grab it with the hackle pliers. Now as I start to wrap it, it's going to be nice and clean. And I'll do a pretty good wrap here at the front, and then I'll start palmering backwards. Broke the tip off. Hopefully the rest of it will stay. So take one good turn at the front here, like so. And then just start with spaced wraps back toward the waiting wire. So now the hackle stem ribbed that peacock going in a spiral back like that. Now the wire, I'm going to take it over the top of that hackle. And then I'll come up through, and I'm now ribbing that peacock herl in the opposite direction with the wire. I'll tie off that wire. Nice tight wraps. And then break it free. And then, I don't know if I can snap that out, or I should probably cut it. Basically made my scissors like a V, and then pushed against the hackle stem to break that, so I didn't clip too much. Now I'll go to the gray squirrel, and I've been working on this side. Hold it out 90 degrees from the bone, and then I'll clip that along the hide, along the skin there. And that's pretty well stacked. I've got a few long ones I'll pull out. So I've got plenty there. And then I'll grab those tips and take any short, real short stuff out. Measure my wing to about there. I don't like to cut the hair at the front of the fly because I always seem to end up with hairs that get down into the eye of the hook and cause trouble. Whoops, just broke my thread. That tells you how tight I was tying that. Make sure it's nice and tight. That squirrel tail is not going anywhere. And then for the front, you could either, if you want to make this look really fancy, say you're doing it for a contest or for points, you could lay down a little bit of glue on over the thread wraps there. Excuse me for bumping the camera. Kind of two other ways to protect this peacock curl. You don't want a whole lot of glue there, but you do want a little bit kind of covering that thread. Set that over there. And then tie this in. And then wrap a peacock head here. Up to there. And then if you didn't want to use glue, you could actually just kind of come through there carefully a couple of times. You do tie some of it down, but if you kind of brush that around a little bit, you still have that peacock curl head. And that's just another way to reinforce the peacock curl. Those stems are delicate, and after you catch a few fish, it's definitely going to break. And there's the picket pin. If I had to grade that, I'd say the tail's a little bit too long. But that would definitely make a streamer with the tail that long. But
Looks like it rolled a little bit too on you, Mike.
where?
It's like it's off to the side a little bit.
The tail?
Yeah. Maybe it's just the camera.
I mean, a slight bit. It's pretty centered if you look at it like.
Yeah, I guess so. It's right over the center, isn't it? Yep, my bad.
And then since I have my glue out, go ahead and put a little glue on that head. again, one of the first flies I learned to tie because it was in catalogs back in the day. You probably won't see it in too many catalogs or websites nowadays. It's not because it doesn't catch fish, but because cooler and fancier things have kind of come along. Any questions on those, or I'm guessing on, I know the crop earring's full spawn because the ones I caught were solid black. Just beautiful spawning colors. So it's on. Try any of the metro lakes. Try if you're trying like along the dam or some rock arms that stick out into the lake, try at one end, try in the corner, try the different sides. I don't really know the fishology of why they pick one area over another. But sometimes it seems like you can go along a stretch and there's nothing. And then whether it's a drop off that you don't see because you're just looking at the surface of the water, that's, close to it. But you can be going along a dam and you're not seeing a thing. And then all of a sudden there's 20 of them in there. And then you go a little bit further with nothing, and then there's another pocket. So it's kind of hard to climb around on the rocks. You kind of got to put on your billy goat shoes and do your best. But there are some areas where the riprap isn't real challenging. It's kind of smaller, and maybe, some older lakes, people have kind of fished them for a while and smoothed it out some. Then, like I said, maybe 2 weeks, then the bluegill spawned.